Hello, everybody. Hope you're doing well. Thank you so much for coming in, you hunks. Appreciate the raid as well, Sec. Thank you. So tonight, we are going to be talking with Sequisha. This was a conversation that I was very much looking forward to for a while. I just didn't know when I would have the time and when I would be able to pose the question. And so Sequisha was very open to doing this, so thank you for doing that. But as far as just a little bit about the show, so this show is primarily just a conversation. We're gonna have some like topics and stuff we'll be going through. If y'all have any questions, just type in !question and it'll give you the like response you should have. You should see it in the chat there. All those things will be logged, and then near the end of the conversation, we'll be looking at those questions and going through, and Seth can decide if he wants to answer them or not. They could be for Sequisha, they could be for me. And then as far as like, I'm sure y'all have been in some other podcasts, possibly. So this is more or less just a conversation between me and Sequisha. There will be some questions, but a lot of this stuff too is the chat also interacting. So if you have anything that you want to say, don't feel like you have to wait till the end. Sequisha has full permission to like look at the chat and respond in the moment, and then we can kind of get into it there. But that's pretty much it. Just a casual conversation, and then we'll be answering some questions near the end. So that's it. Sec, you want to introduce yourself?
Hello. I'm Sequisha.
A lot of people know who you are for sure in here. Yeah, so as far as the show goes, we talked a little bit about like what we wanted to do, or how like the direction we were sort of going. And for me, and I'm sure a lot of people in here as well, the whole like persona of you is very interesting. You have a very strong, I would consider you a strong character. And I'm just curious, I guess, like in terms of getting started with this, how did you find yourself on Twitch first of all, and then like where did you start, and how did you end up where you're at in terms of like the content you're creating, that sort of thing? Let's start there.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much started doing artwork, working on video games on Twitch for a long time when there was a game development category. Like working, you know, it's funny we're talking about that now because I'm playing DayZ standalone, and actually the very first broadcast I did was playing Diablo 3, like right when it came out. So I was doing like pretty crazy stuff and like crafting and all that stuff. Because watching Crip had really got me into like actually watching Twitch rather than popping into it randomly, because I got kind of invested in the hardcore you know, runs in Diablo were pretty interesting. And kind of I don't know, I feel like everyone that watches Twitch, there's one main thing that grabs them. They're like, man, that was super cool, and then they, you know, come back for more, because you know that type of entertaining is really engaging. Yeah, I don't know, I was going to school for game development, like, you know, 3D artwork and stuff, and was doing my homework, you know, on Twitch and streaming it. And actually on the map that we're playing on in DayZ, the Molsk, was where I saw a guy was playing, because I was really into kind of DayZ at the time too when I quit playing Diablo. He was actually setting up the trader cities on the Molsk for the mod Epoch, or Epoch, whatever you want to, we call it Epoch. It was just like, hey, Epoch, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I asked him, I was like, hey, I'm like a 3D artist, or I'm learning, you know, I'd like to get involved and help you guys out. He's like, all right, well, I'll send you to the lead dev. We're looking for an artist. And I met with AWOL, the lead dev, and they had gone through like several people that were like, yeah, I can totally do it, you know, and then they'd show up, and then they would even like work on the items they were asking for. They would like download other 3D models online and then like send it to them because I guess they just wanted to be, you know, known as having worked on the mod or something. I don't know, it was ridiculous. Right. But yeah, they were like, hey, we need a fucking fishing pole so we get fishing in game. I was like, all right. And like by that night, you know, I'd made a fishing pole, and then the lead dev AWOL, really brilliant guy, a programmer, pretty much, you know, like the vision for it and everything was all behind all that. He's like, I need you to get it like in game, like through the engine tools and all that. So here's this. So I spent all night figuring that shit out. And I think by like 3 or 4 in the morning, we had like a working animated like fishing polling game. So it was cool.
That's super cool. Yeah, the school experience is pretty interesting too. I actually had like, there were some people that did the same thing, like in my classes. They would like buy a 3D model and like try to submit it like for a grade. I'm like, what are you fucking doing? Like, we're learning how to 3D model in this class, you know?
Right.
Super weird.
Well, you know, yeah, a lot of that too. I don't know if you noticed this when you were going to school for that. Did it not seem like it was an adult daycare?
Yes, 100%.
Like a lot of parents just like sent their kids there to like get them out of the house, you know?
Yeah, well, I think like a lot of it too was people would go to, like, I had the impression, so for me, and I feel free to explain your background too, before going to college, like I had very limited experience with just like 3D software and everything. I didn't have a portfolio or like practice animation or anything like that. In college, that was like my first instance with the software, because I just didn't have a computer that could run that stuff, you know? So all the hardware and everything was at the college. And so yeah, it was interesting that you would go there, and then there would be like kids that are in the same boat as me, but like fucking around or, you know, not taking the class seriously. And I'm like, no, dude, I want to like make games, or I want to animate this thing, you know? So yeah, it's super weird. That's why it was super cool that one of your recent tweets where you were like showed a small animation project. I was like, oh shit, do I still have mine?
Yeah, the same rig. That was a really fun rig to work with.
Yeah, super simple,
easy.
Yeah. And that was one of the classes that I really liked. Going to college was the rigging. Rigging was super cool. I was like, I had no idea that this was just like a whole portion of games or just animation in general.
Yeah, rigging is by far, I think, my least favorite out of all of it.
Yeah.
I mean, like I could do it, but it was really difficult because what I didn't like about it was like if you like when you were hooking up, you know, the IK, you know, between like, you know, like the heel or the toes to the hip or whatever.
Yeah.
If you made one wrong move, your character would flip fucking inside out and go ape shit. And you wouldn't be able to like, yeah, you wouldn't be able to revert it too. There's no like Control Z for that kind of shit.
Yeah. You're pretty much fucked.
Yeah, you have to rebuild the whole hierarchy for the rig and everything.
Yeah. Yeah, that was, I agree. It was definitely one of the hardest things that like I did in school, but I don't know. It was something that I gravitated towards quite a bit. And it wasn't even I didn't even start with complex rigs. It was like, I remember we had like a short where we were, it was a bunch of palm trees. There was like a 2D animation where like there was a palm tree talking to each other. And I was like, okay, well that sounds like a good start. I'll just do like a simple line rig with like eyeballs and then the mouth. And thank God I had like, the school that I went to was kind of janky as fuck. Like definitely like they had some predatory loan stuff like after I graduated and all this other things. So it was like, it was kind of bittersweet. I had like a core group of like 5 really great teachers that made me sort of a generalist, and like the stuff that I was telling everybody before you got on, but like the animation for like the starting soon screen and like the transitions and stuff, like that motion graphics and like 3D modeling, all that stuff. I wasn't really as much into 3D as I was into the motion graphics portion. So after school, I didn't get to practice much. I did like some QA testing at like a gaming studio, and then I kind of just like went in the retail route. So, but it sounds like you kind of had, like you started off in game dev, and then I know you talked before on stream, but like how was, like were you working and doing game dev, like carpentry and stuff like that, or what were you doing?
I was just going to school. Like I started working on that Epoch mod, which was like took all the pretty much any time that I wasn't in class, it consumed all that time, like working on that, like day and night, like anywhere from 10 to like 16-hour chunks of just, because like we were making so much progress. You know, me and the other team members just worked so hard on it that like we would get a new like feature or something crazy worked out, and we'd have it working in game for like the next test build. And there was so much progress all the time that, you know, I don't know, we didn't mind really pouring massive amounts of time into it. So yeah, I was still going to school during that, and with all like the school loans, I like, you know, fucking bought the, you know, new computer and shit like that. I mean, that's what it was fucking for. You know, I feel like, I don't know.
No, that's what it was, man, because you needed it, you know?
Yeah, started streaming that shit.
Yeah. So you were streaming and working on these mods, and then like where I guess like how did you decide you were gonna go away from like the art content? Like when did you start deviating from that and just sort of playing games?
Oh, also, I have to mention,
Okay.
during all that, I was also working as a bouncer. Okay. Every now and then.
Nice.
Every like every other weekend.
Okay.
You know?
Did you do any on the topics of bouncer? Did you have any like self-defense classes and stuff that you took like growing up or like started when you were doing that?
Growing up with a younger brother, I think was in defense classes, like because we fought all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Okay.
no. What was the other question you asked me? It was something.
Oh, it was
It was the last.
yeah, when you started deviating from like your
Right.
art content and moving into I guess like gaming or more, well, I guess like gaming. Yeah, let's go there. How did you get into more gaming, I guess, like on stream?
Well, there's many people that were here from that process too, like Shifty D84 there in chat. So it went from working on the games and then testing all the new live builds, and primarily during Arma 3, we moved on to Arma 3, learning all the new stuff in the engine and everything, all the new up-to-date tricks and tools they had, which wasn't very much. While we were testing the stuff on the live server, I was like showing everyone on stream and going around and like wrecking a bunch of people, and I noticed the view count would like quadruple at that point, and there was a lot more like kind of support too.
Yeah.
Because understandably so, because when you're working on an art piece, it's a process,
Right.
And there's a lot of people that might be interested in the process and learning, but there's not a whole lot of moments of celebration.
True.
There's not a lot of like triumphs to like overcome.
Yeah.
It's just like, hey, well, we're doing this, and now we're getting to the point where we're doing UVs, so everybody hang tight.
Yeah.
So I mean, in some of these games, there's a lot of challenges and a lot of these barriers that you overcome, and it's something to celebrate. So it just kind of makes more sense for the live stream audience.
Yeah, it makes it a little bit more relatable too, because
right,
there's a common ground already when you're playing a game,
Mm-hmm.
and you can't really have that with the artistic process unless you're like showcasing something that you made, like a portfolio or something like that.
Right.
Yeah. So I guess like I'm very interested in like the journey of like how you got to the point where you got the stream like so fine-tuned in itself to like represent who you are. And I know that sounds weird, but I guess the best way to explain it is that you've done a really good job of creating an extension digitally of yourself via stream. And so was that just like exploring OBS more, or was it adding more tools like the camera angles and like the well, I guess not, it's not really a glitch, but like taking advantage of some of the transitionary like audio stuff? Like, was that just your art brain melding more with the OBS software, or like what was that like for you?
Yeah, kind of. There's a little bit of that. I mean, along the way, there's a lot of people that like kind of helped me out. Like not only for fine tuning everything, like a lot of feedback from the community, people that care about this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know, just kind of playing around and touching up stuff, like Dear Someone, for instance, has like 'cause I think like kind of like a similar vibe to some of these things, like kind of like attracted him as well, where he was like, oh, then he'd see the stuff, some of the funny stuff, and then he'd naturally as an editor, he'd clip some of it together. He's like, hey, I put this thing together, and it was like, holy shit, this is fucking amazing,
Yeah.
And then from that point on, like we've had a relationship, kind of working on stuff together. I mean, more so like him. But
Okay. Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I think if it's something that I do all the time and all day, I want to be like kind of proud of it, and being like part of an entertainment scape. I want to make it feel like kind of immersive.
Yeah.
I don't want people to be like, all right, here it's streamer time, everyone. So let's play video games till the next donation rolls around, and like really phone it in. Because a lot of people do that. They really do phone it in. I figure if I'm doing it all the time and I'm putting my name on it, I want it to kind of like try to stick out a little bit. There's things I can always improve on. Like even now, there's like, dude, I need to be doing this. But sometimes I just like, after waking up and eating some food, I'm like, I just fucking feel like streaming, and plus I don't want to break anything right
Yeah.
now, because you need a little bit of that buffer time whenever you try something new to make sure that it doesn't break everything, doesn't come crumbling down.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I feel like that happens about like once a year, for my circle of friends that do content creation. We take like a week off just to fuck with something, or we like constantly send messages to our friends and like, hey, I have this idea, do you want, like, what do you think about this, or like how do you think this would be in, if I wanted to like really hone in, besides like a camera zoom or whatever, like how would I how do you think I would accomplish this best? And it's just to emphasize like a point or a death or whatever it is, rather than just like copying and pasting what you see like all over online and everything, right? Yeah, it's the content, like the whole streaming content thing has always been really interesting, just to start, because like a lot of people, they just, like you said, they phone it in or whatever, and I don't even think they realize that it's just like a
Oh, they don't.
Yeah, I think it's just like I have the capability to stream, so I'm going to do it. And then I'm not gonna lie, when I first did it, I was like, I'm funny, people will come in here and like watch me be funny. They don't give a shit. Nobody gives a shit until you like start actually representing yourself properly online, right? And so I guess like, I don't know, it's such a weird space to be in. So how, like, you've been in the space for a long time, how do you view like streamer culture and all that shit? Like, do you see it as like something that you don't really participate in, and you're more of like an individual that like happens to stream, or how do you see it?
Oh no, I wouldn't necessarily say that. There's a lot of like streamer culture that I'm like certainly a part of. There's a lot of times I'm kind of anti-streamer sometimes, because there's a lot of people in this space, and a lot of people really do kind of like phone it in and have the whole generic thing going. Like, a lot of it's smack talk. Like I talk about like the esports Andes, and that's like one of my favorite things to talk about, because people that like over meta game, like a game to the point where it takes out the creative elements that welcome new players. That's one of my main things.
Can you elaborate more like on what you mean by that? Like an example or anything?
Yeah. Whenever a game, like for instance, like when whenever Fortnite VR came out, and I was going ham on it, and I had already played, I'd played a bunch of Rust, building in Rust before, and I played a bunch of the Fortnite Save the World edition, which was like the the PvE version.
Right.
And
Right.
when it came out, like no one was really playing it, no one knew, whatever. And I'm building these crazy little bases like right off the bat, and like wrecking people and winning all the time. When I was doing that, that was fun. But then like a little bit later on, it became this standard. Like for other people were like, oh well, how fast are your 90s, bro? Like this whole attitude of like, how quickly can you build this one little, and like
Right.
you'd see like streams of kids building towers and seeing how fast they could do it between their keybinds and shit. Like it just becomes like so formulated. Some of these PvP, like these esports, like kind of mentality, it becomes so formulated that and I feel like it takes out a lot of like the sandbox creative elements of a video game.
Yeah.
Like for instance, like Tarkov, someone's like, oh, if you're not running slick plate armor and you're not using a VSS, like you're fucking dog shit. You know what I mean? Just because it's like the best armor in the game and the highest penetrating, fastest, like DPS rounds or whatever.
Right.
It's like, dude, like I don't know. So like that mentality is a big turnoff for me. So I try to push back against shit like that. I mean, an individual can only do so much, but I'm gonna try to do my part to push back against dumb shit like that.
Well,
that mentality.
I mean, you got me into Escape from Tarkov because like you weren't wearing giant gear and shit. You were just going in with like a Mosin or like a shotgun. Shotguns runs. Yeah.
No, I rarely ever use a Mosin. It's only for that quest. Okay.
Right.
Let's just be clear here. Okay.
Yes. Shoddy. Shoddy specifically. For sure. Yes.
The long boy.
Yeah. but it was still like, it was, I don't know. That was one of those moments where like it was just, I was like, I've seen Sacriel like play, and he's all geared up and shit. And nothing against Sacriel. He's just been playing the game a long time, right? And like, it was just cool to have like a budget, rig set up, and I'm going into factory and just see who we can get,
Yeah. Yeah, I would venture to say that some of that, like sometimes things just work out, you know,
Right.
because sometimes that budget build is out of laziness and frustration, probably. Because after
Right.
spending 10 or 15 minutes putting a whole kit and a gun together, and then like instantly getting one tapped, like, all right, we're just going in with a fucking shotgun. We're gonna see what happens, and
Right.
then it ends up working out, you know, most of the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. I no. I don't know. It's just it's cool to. I don't know. Budget rigs out of frustration. I don't. It's such a weird thing to see because I don't know. It's a lot of even on like League, like your mentality, that mentality of like crafting your own path. Like you've sort of done that as well. Like I don't, you don't use the recommended tab. You know what you like. You know what builds you're going for. You know, that sort of thing. And I guess it's just a matter of like getting acquainted with the fundamentals of how the game works, and then
Right.
you excel from there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've always liked to you know, with new games, there's always, I feel like when a brand new game comes out, I do incredibly well at the very beginning. Like I
Hmm.
like body, you know, people all the time, and do really well. And then like, because like I feel like I'm like, you know, I'm a fast learner. I'm not dependent on like what the wiki says for the game a lot of times. I try to figure it out.
Yeah.
Um, and then like I end up kind of trailing off because I start getting fucking bored of the game.
Yeah.
But you know, but like with that too, I'm not just like tooting my own horn like that. Like I catch on quick, but I also kind of I kind of get bored, and also I have the where some people have this, they have the dedication to practice the redundancy of things just so they can be, you know, try to be the very best in the world at it. I'm not that concerned about that, so
Right.
and I don't have the dedication to pound, you know, it's like doing like if it once it feels like homework, I'm like, all right, I'm kind of already 1 foot out the door. I'm like, oh, let's wait. That new game's coming out, you know.
I gotcha. So like what's the how is it for you in terms of like being satisfied with just games coming out in general? Do you find that like you pick them up and then you put them down pretty quickly, or is it more of like being like a seasoned game dev slash gamer where you know you kind of figure out exactly what the game is and you're just like, well, I mean, that's what it is. I'm glad I had my time with it, and then you kind of like move on.
Yeah, I think it really depends. But I mean, most of the time you can pretty much feel pretty early on whether or not you're going to be into a game, you know, whether or not it
Yeah.
kind of grabs you, or if it feels like it has a future of things that you enjoy in a game.
Yeah.
I can normally pick up on that pretty quickly.
Okay. I think that just comes with your experimentation, like being acquainted with games, you know, for so
Example.
long.
Yeah, yeah. Example one, Godfall. Yeah, definitely. I as soon as I went through the first level of that, and then as soon as it had a quest where it was like, defend this beacon for 10 minutes, and like an onslaught of enemies, I was like, nope. I literally hit escape and fucking quit the game.
We're
I
good.
never played it again
Yeah.
because I knew where that was going. I knew there was going to be a whole lot of that, and I was like, I'm good.
Yeah, I think it's a good trait to have, in my opinion. Like I think it's good to know what you like and also be able to just sense the barometer, you know, because we're in this weird space where after a certain amount of time, like, I mean, I've been playing games since, you know, I was little as well, and it's just you get kind of acquainted with it. It's the same reason why I guess I don't gravitate towards was it like Apex Legends, you know, like I've already played like enough BRs, and it's nice, it's cool, it's fun, fast paced. I understand the appeal, I respect the game and the people who made it, you know, but it's like I'm not getting the experience that I want anymore, and anything that I have experienced from that game has been experienced through other games, and it's sort of like rehashed or whatever. So like once I'm acquainted, I'm good. That XP bar is filled, I'm gonna move on and try to find something new, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. So was like the gaming thing for you, in terms of like your life experience, like when did video games get introduced to you? Like what was the like
yeah, my parents they had an Atari. They had all the cartridges for it too.
holy hell.
Yeah, I think, but well, because they were stationed in Germany, and I think they were getting them for really cheap or something from like the base exchange over there. I'm not really entirely sure. You know, my father was Air Force, and yeah, I don't know. They just had like everything. Like they must have been getting them for really cheap. But you know, because like we grew up like pretty poor, so it's kind of one of those things. It's like, you know what? Why did we have all these Atari games? You know,
Yeah.
I don't know. It was kind of one of those things. But I guess like I was kind of like that. Like I've always kind of been like that too. Like I always kind of like got, even if I didn't have a whole lot of money, I always kind of got like, you know, the nice things to occupy my time with. So
Yeah. I think that's just, I mean, I grew up poor as well. It was like one of those things where you wanted to treat yourself, right? So,
right.
yeah. It's that whole experience, like video games for me was just, I had an aunt who was doing very well, and so like when I would get babysat, they had a NES with like the Duck Hunt and like Super Mario cartridge and like Heavy Barrel. And then video games for me, like we moved and then they disappeared like from my life up until I was in like pre-K. And I remember like this place that we went to for pre-K was like wild because they had a computer, and I thought that was crazy. I was like in this place where like there's weird gymnastic equipment, like all these weird things. It was like a fun land at like daycare center, I guess, right? And but they had a computer, and I remember playing like Fairy Godmother and a bunch of weird games. And the one game that like stuck with me was it was Mega Man on floppy disk. And I was like, this is crazy. I didn't even know they had games like this where like it was super hard and difficult, and like I would lose an hour and have to be like pulled off because you only get like an hour or something or less of the time. And that game's super hard on keyboard and like keyboard. So I'm like trying to get through like keyboard arrow keys and like spacebar jumping through, and I'm like, I don't even know if I'll ever be able to play this again.
I think I remember that. It was like black and white, or like two or three different shades, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was like gray. I think I'm probably misremembering, but if I think back, I want to say that Mega Man was blue. It was like majority of like blue, gray, and then red. I think there was only 3 colors
like that,
or something.
That rusty clay red or whatever.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah, I don't even know what system that would have been on, but yeah, video games disappeared after that, and it was gone. And then like 8th birthday, I got like a Super Nintendo, and then from there it was like history. Stayed up. It was just, I think my first game was like Super Mario All-Stars or whatever.
Super Nintendo was such a crazy like pivotal time in like video games, because games started looking that much greater. Music was like starting to get insane because they had, you know, there was a sound card in the thing that actually Sony had developed the sound card for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Yeah. And then I think they realized, they're like, man, we should probably make our own. Like, no, hence the PlayStation later on.
Yeah.
Look where that's at now. Sony.
Dude.
PlayStation 5.
Wild. It's kind of crazy, like seeing where we're at after being in that weird generation of like no internet and like cartridges and all these like, it was like consumer electronics, like being a nerd and like playing video games and stuff. Like it was like forbidden and like you were looked down upon, and then now like nerd culture and all that is permeated all of society. Like absolutely crazy. And then the whole internet phase has just been wild. Like we talked a little bit about this a bit, like social media in general. Like in my opinion, we're in like not in my opinion, the fact is we're still in like the teenager years of social media. But like how's that been in terms of your experience? For me, it's always been like a weird, I see it for what it is. It's just like a primitive form of communication, and now it's like this like way of life, and people really gravitate towards it as a form of connection. And I'm not gonna lie, I do the same thing, and I'm sure a lot of people in chat use it for that as well. But like, how is that growing up for you? Like, do you remember like the computer that you got in your house, and like your experience with like growing up with the internet and all that shit? Like, how was that for you?
Yeah, I mean, I was because you know, I turned 37 this year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, at the time, like the internet, we didn't get the internet until I was in like, I think maybe 8th grade. Yeah. 7th or 8th grade, something like that. I think it might have been 7th grade, because that was around the time that it was around the time Diablo came out. That's when we got internet. It had been there for, you know, a couple of years, but I remember early on growing up, my father would connect to like bulletin board systems, the BBS systems, where you'd dial in with the modem on your old shit computers to someone's, you know, whoever was running the bulletin board, and it would connect you to like this kind of, like kind of like a directory, or like random games that you could play on there, like these like muds or whatever, and or transfer files, up to a certain amount. You
Yeah.
could upload and download per day, and shit. So people were sharing all kinds of stuff. Like I remember downloading Doom 2 off of there with like a Simpsons mod and all this other crazy shit.
Yeah. First
Yeah.
mods.
Yeah.
That's pretty fucking cool, man.
The Simpsons mod for Doom 2 was insane. Like somebody spent a lot of time doing that. All the animation frames of everything was like, it was either all Homer's or Marge or Lisa's, and like the boss was like Mr. Burns, like the big like brain thing
Yeah.
was like Mr. Burns' head in there. Like it was pretty nuts.
That's pretty fucking cool. I don't even know.
Yeah.
I would love to know like where that person is now.
Yeah, I have no idea. It might have been a couple people, because that would have been a lot of work.
For a single
Well done.
person? Oh yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Wow. Yeah, the whole like, I don't know, it's just been this whole, especially this year with like COVID-19 and all that, it's just been super watching just everybody fucking lose their minds because all we can do is spend time online has been kind of wild.
I think, yeah, you were asking me, I guess, about social media growing up. Well, I didn't have AOL. A lot of people were like AOL and Instant Messenger or whatever. And my father was like, did not want AOL in the fucking house or whatever for some reason. I don't know, something to do with some type of security thing or something like that, because he like came from a long line of working with computers and shit.
Yeah. Also military too, so like
Right.
that adds into it.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, used everyone, or MySpace and how annoying that was.
Mm-hmm.
Especially like here living in North Carolina, like having friends on MySpace, you go to like their MySpace page and like some chick, and there's like a fucking country song playing at 1,000% volume, blowing out your speakers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, and then Facebook, like I don't know. I've been off of Facebook for several years now, and it's been really nice.
Yeah.
And then whenever Twitter gets really political, I just don't enjoy it. I really don't.
Yeah.
There's an argument of like, oh, well, you gotta talk about this kind of stuff. Like, I feel like my platform on Twitch serves better for that, because it's part of a conversation. It's not just throwing darts at each other.
Right.
Or
'Cause
that's what
virtue
it feels like.
signaling or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times, like, it's not really a conversation. People are just trying to throw out their best, their best little word bomb.
Yeah.
And then hope that it catches. I feel like I don't know. I'm just not really happy when it gets super political, because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding all the time. This is just a very like kind of poor form of communication.
Agreed. Yeah, 240 characters isn't enough to like express ideas,
Right.
You get
right.
like a little nugget of what it is, and that's pretty much it. And
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, when you're communicating too, when someone's like sending it, like, I'm talking to you about this now, or what I'm saying right now, you're thinking about what I'm saying. And that's also kind of like altering, maybe your perception of it and how you would like respond,
Right.
rather than, I don't know. So yeah, there's part of that too. It's definitely just an inferior form of communication, I feel like.
Well, a lot of it too, like, I mean, you don't have the emotion, it's like,
Yeah.
you can't read the body language or intention in words. So like a lot of that, it's super weird. I mean, I'm 30. I'm gonna be 31 in February. And like, I mean, my experience with social media has been, as far as watching, I do a lot of watching and like seeing how people sort of like throw on their own intentions, and like how they make assumptions about the intention of how people communicate. And it's super fucking weird to me, because like I think it just comes from life experience, like I worked 10 years in retail, and so a lot of the conversations that I would have with people and just like communication in general, it was always face to face. And so you can't take, like, it was something I learned in retail where like you couldn't take 15 minutes, like if somebody was an asshole to me, it's very easy to be like, okay, well that person's a fucking asshole. And then, after being in retail for so long, you start to realize that it's just, that 15 minutes, the 20 minutes I was with that person, like who the fuck knows what's going on outside of their life? You know what I mean? Like, it's the same thing with like getting cut off we learned about assuming positive intent. That's really what it was. You know, like getting cut off in traffic. Like it's easy to be like, and I still do this, of course, but getting cut
I
off.
run people off the road. Like,
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
Well, everybody has that like animalistic part of them. You know what I mean? You're like, fuck you, you selfish piece of shit or whatever. Like it's easy to go into that default like mental pathway. And I feel like when you're swept up in the energy of like being that, you do that. The same thing happens online. You know, like it's super easy to assume negative intent and all that shit, but to actually have a conversation about it is a lot more like nutrient dense and nuanced, and I think that needs to happen more. That's part of the reason why I wanted to do like any of these conversations on here or like taking phone calls. It's just there's not enough social media information. Like 240 characters isn't enough, so like let's talk about this shit. It's super important to do so. It's one of the things I really like about your stream is like there are a lot of times where you just like, okay, like let's talk about this shit. Like let's have a nuanced conversation around it, you know? And that's I think that's super important.
Yeah, some of that stuff I think is definitely like some of the more favorite content of some people. Everyone's got their own, you know, things they like, of course, but yeah.
So I guess like growing up, I think like when it comes down to my perception of you as a person, and I'm not entirely sure if this is in line with everybody else in chat, so feel free to chime in, everybody, if you like. But for me, watching the channel for as long as I have been, and well, not as long as like obviously they're seeing those like 57 months and shit. I'm like, dude, that's wild. Like that's crazy. I've only been there for 2 years, you know, and but seeing you just be a person. I know it sounds weird, but like the honesty and like strength of character, what I mean by that, instead of just putting it into a single word, is it just seems like you know what you like and you know what you stand for and you know like who you are as a person. And to me, and this has been my experience as well, like my personal experience, growing up, like I used to be a fucking asshole. I was just a shitty person, very selfish. And I think depending on like how you grow up and like the experiences you had, it leads you to be a stronger person, a stronger, more less watered down version of yourself. The perception of others doesn't really matter as much as like the close circle you have around you and the feedback you're getting from people you trust, and you're not really like faltering. You kind of figure out who you are. I know we talked a little bit about like how, I mean, you've had past life experiences that have like led you to correcting your own behavior and figuring out like yourself more. And I was wondering if we could talk a little bit more about that, because I know you've mentioned it before on stream too, and it's interesting. You're just like, if they're just toxic people in your life, like you just got to cut them out. Like they bring you down. They make you less of who you are. So I was wondering if you would be like wanting to share any of that.
Yeah, I mean, like where do I start with that?
Yeah, that's a hard one.
Yeah. I mean, that's I feel like everybody's got to experience enough of shitty things happen in your life, or like disappointment, or or people deceiving you, so you get to the point where you feel like I don't know, sometimes you got to be careful about like who like you depend on.
Agreed. Yeah.
You need to be able like to consider the scenario that if you do depend on somebody and then for whatever reason they're not there anymore, or they can't help you or whatever, like what do you do from that point? And that second point is like throughout, well, in like later years, like how I try to think about my path and like what I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think getting kind of stomped on and like hitting rock bottom, and then starting to do, well, I guess it kind of goes in like sacrificing yourself for relationships with other people, sacrificing things that you love and enjoy, and people holding you back from that kind of stuff, and seeing how it affects you. And then when you get to the point where you're like, fuck everybody else, I'm gonna do what I want to do. And then it starts working out really well for you. You're like, wow, I should have been true to myself this entire time. It's like a big enlightening thing. You're like, wow, I should have just been doing like me, not so much in the sense of like, hey, fuck everyone,
Right.
I'm only going to care about me, but more like I need to make sure that all my needs and bases are they come first, and then once if I'm good, then I can help all these other people,
Yeah.
or so.
For the people you care about. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Like, just well, I guess like what was that like for you? Because like rock bottom's different for everybody. For me, I was working at I was working at Best Buy. I was there for like fucking 3.5 years while I was going to school, and I was smoking dope like every fucking day.
On them left-handed cigarettes, boy.
Yeah, exactly. Because like, how the fuck am I gonna go in there, work in a video game department, and talk with people all day for 8 hours, man? Like, fuck, dude. So like, coping mechanism for me was that I was abusing cannabis and working fucking retail at a shit job that I did not like, and I had I had a girlfriend that was like enabling the habit, and like I had friends that were just like fucking toxic, and it took me, it was like a straight week of like me. I took a week off work, and I was waking up at like 12 o'clock every fucking day. I was deadbeat tired, and I was just like, by the end of that week, I was just so sick and tired of being sick and tired. I had like I can't even recall exactly the turning point. It was some stupid documentary about like your diet and some shit. And then I started fixing that, and then slowly but surely it was like building up to it. I got a better job. That was really nice too. The job that I was going for was like it was retail experience, right? So I was going into Apple retail, and I didn't get hired, or I failed the interview process because they were like, listen, I had a friend who was working there. I was like, I need to get out of Best Buy or whatever. And for the whole interview, I pretty much talked about how shitty my experience at Best Buy was. They're like, listen, you can't work here. Like you clearly like just hate your old job. You know what I mean? Yeah. So what was do you have like a rock bottom like self-reflection point where you were just like, shit, I need to prioritize myself and like figure out exactly like what I would like to do?
Yeah, it's actually, I got the very last time working in maintenance, the company, the company I worked for was purchased, and they let everyone go, so I got laid off. At that point, I mean, I didn't really have anything to like do at that point. So then my mom talked to me, and she was like, listen, you gotta go to school, you can go get the loans for it, and if you need any help, blah blah blah. And I think that was around that point, because I think I was really into somebody that I was dating at the time that didn't work out either. And, I mean, there was a lot of rock bottom points leading up to that.
Okay.
Actually, you're talking about this working at the Apple store or whatever. I remember just out of high school, I tried. I was like, hey, they're like, you gotta go get a job. I remember applying at a Chick-fil-A, and the manager is coming to give me an interview, and he's going over the thing. And one of the questions on the thing was like, if one of your coworkers was stealing like pickles or something, would you what were the choices? What would you do? And I would, and I think one of the choices was like, hey, talk to them, see if they're okay, they need help or whatever. And then apparently that was the wrong answer, because you gotta tell like your boss and rat them out. They're like, here's like, yeah, sorry man, you gotta, we can't hire you because that. I was like, oh, the fuck, dude. I don't know. So I thought that was pretty funny.
That is really fucking, I don't know, man, showing compassion. Like, if I had a coworker stealing pickles, I'd be like, dude, you okay? Like, everything.
Yeah. Hey, you shouldn't eat only, my dude.
Yeah. You shouldn't be only eating pickles, man.
Yeah, it was some multiple choice thing someone's asking.
Damn.
Stealing is stealing. Well,
pickles.
Also stealing from your employees too by paying them fucking non-livable wage is also fucking, you may as well be considered stealing too. But,
tell them.
Stealing from faceless corporations. Chick-fil-A is pretty much faceless at this point.
100%.
It is a little bit different in my opinion.
I agree. Got him. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was it like a compounded, well, you said multiple rock bottoms, so that was like one of them. Was that like,
I mean, I've been through a lot of stuff, man.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
What do you think would be like if you had to pick one of those instances where you were like, fuck man, I gotta figure my shit out, was that like, what would you, I guess, like, what experience is the one that like comes to you the
Well,
most?
there's another one when my power was out because of the fucking light, or like the light pole like connected to the house had like knocked over in a storm. So the power was out. Something I had to fix too, or it would have cost like thousands of dollars for someone else to do. So I had to get a new, like, what was it, like 6x6 like fucking piece of treated lumber into the ground, and like rewired all that shit, and then had the city come connect it back up. But during that too, the well pump was powered by that, so I didn't have like any water either. And
Holy shit.
and then the water there too was always fucking really rusty and shitty.
Yeah.
So it was just like, taking especially when it's like freezing in the fucking winter time, and then having to take a shitty, like, rusty fucking freezing shower after that. Like, it was just like, man, like, this fucking sucks, dude.
Yeah.
Washing any white clothing, I don't know, like, there's probably a couple people that have ever been on well water, but when it's all like rusty and like orange, turns all your white clothing into like this rusty, like, stained shit color. Yeah. But that kind of stuff, it's like, yeah, you know what, I really gotta find a way out of this shit.
So what was that like? How did you start? Like, what was the starting process for you? Because everybody's different with that. Like, for me, it was like my diet, like I was like, okay, well, I gotta fix my diet. I'm fucked. Like, I'm so tired. What's going on here?
Yeah.
And then it was like exercise, and it was like really fundamental shit. Like, I wasn't sleeping right, diet, exercise, sleep. Like, how did you, when you were in, did you have like a sort of, well, I guess you didn't necessarily have to do it by yourself. Did you have like a good support network? I assume, I mean, you talk about your family quite a bit. Was your brothers and like your sisters and family like involved in your life, like during those times, or?
Yeah, I mean, they've always been there. Like, we've always been there to like kind of, help each other out, like keep each other's spirits up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, a lot of it, like, kind of like, we probably all feel this way. Like myself and like me and my siblings, where we all kind of like have to like find our own way,
Okay.
Because it, like, even now at this point, we're like, I'd really like to, help out some of them. They're like, I fucking got this, like, don't worry about it, like, type thing. I mean, I try to help however I can, but everyone's definitely got a lot of pride in that regard.
So are you all pretty like strong-headed, like stubborn people?
A little bit, yeah. I would say so, probably. All of us are kind of stubborn, but understanding. Definitely a lot of pride, though.
A lot of pride. Where do you think that? Where did that just come from? Like, y'all growing up, like the way you did, or how did that instill?
Probably from my father. Probably.
Yeah.
More than likely, I think most pride probably does. Well, I guess it really depends, but
yeah, I feel like it's whoever the strong person is in the family. It's usually like pride, stubbornness, like all that. For me, it was like my mom. My mom was that person, I was like, pick yourself up by your bootstraps, like, let's fucking go. Don't be a little bitch. And I'm like, all right, I got it. I'm gonna work on it. Failure was like not an option, and if I needed to, I would like, it was I don't know, honestly, it's been super weird, just like later in life, like looking back on that stuff and being like, okay, well, I need to also know when to ask for help. Like, that was a really big like turning point in like my mid-20s, like going forward. It was like, listen, I need fucking help, and I need to like talk to somebody about this shit. And then me and my sister got closer over that too. I only have one sibling. How was it growing up with, you said you have 5 brothers and sisters?
Yeah, with 2 brothers and 2 sisters. So
okay, so 5 total. Yeah. How was that? Because I can't even imagine like growing up with a house full of kids.
It was cool. There was several years between like each of us. But yeah, I don't know. It was cool. Everyone kind of kept each other busy, and like most of growing up was like me, playing video games with my younger brother, or my older brother.
Okay.
So I don't know. We kept pretty occupied in that regard. But I think one of the coolest things growing up is got a lot of all inspired each other with different like genres of music and different
Yeah.
like tastes in that regard. Because I think like in every genre of music, there's kind of like there's better selections from every genre. So
Yeah.
having all that cherry picked across a whole line of siblings, I got exposed to all kinds of really really interesting stuff. I think
That's awesome.
that's all kind of yeah.
So video games and music, I mean, that's clearly in line with like the content you're creating for sure, So growing up, like, was music always like a big part of it then? Was it like listening to music and then getting into playing it? Or was it something that like you said your younger brother, are you like, not to disparage the rest of the Sequisha
Right.
family or whatever, but are you closest with your younger brother like growing up or?
Yeah, both of my brothers. I think I'm pretty close with both of them. Yeah, my younger brother. I mean, we were closer in age, so we spent a lot more time like together.
You could relate more. Yeah, it makes sense.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we were the only ones that really got into like knockdown, drag out like brawls.
Beating each other up. Yeah.
Yeah. I was talking about this the other day. It's funny because like growing up, us like jabbing each other or wrestling all the time happened so much and from like such an early age that he got super, like his reflexes like got insane, where like or my mom or something would be like, want to like hit him with a belt or something, and he'd be, dodging it like the fucking Matrix, and then my parents would get all fucking triggered and upset because they couldn't actually land any blows on him because he's like
Super
dodging
nimble.
everything or super blocked, and like, yeah, it was just pretty funny.
That's pretty awesome.
we still laugh about that kind of shit.
Yeah. Well, it's a different, everybody had like I think a lot of people have like growing up in a tough environment, Like I had a Greek family. My mom was a firstborn in America. Her parents came from Greece. So like it was the same thing with them. And like, I mean, she was like, I'll never hit my kids, but it was like yelling. It was the same thing, like to a certain degree, So everybody deals with it differently. And it kind of makes you really close with your siblings too, because you're like, fucking, the trauma is like what bonds you, like over those fucking weird instances. So, yeah, man, super wild. Was so music was like something that, like, do you recall like when music started being introduced to the house and like when you and your brothers were starting to like listen and like bond over all that shit?
We weren't listening to a whole lot of the same music early on, but I would say probably middle school was probably when middle school, like 6th through like 8th grade was probably around the time where I was really started to get into listening to music. I didn't really start playing though until like high school.
And then I remember you mentioned you were in a band, right?
Yeah, I've been in a bunch of bands.
How was that experience for you?
I mean, it was a lot of fun. A lot of like there's nothing quite like, doing all this work, all this practicing and getting everything sounding right, and then playing a show is amazing. While you're on stage, it's fucking awesome, especially when everything sounds great. But then like once the show's over, it's like such a zap of like all emotion and energy, or you just feel a lot of like, you're like, all right, well, it's like imagine like getting ready for a big party and then like instantly the party's over and you're just like cleaning up, because at that point you're just like, well, moping, bringing all your equipment out to the vehicle to go pack it up, and I don't know, it was kind of depressing music. So I understand why a lot of musicians like get really heavy into drugs,
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I was in a band in high school and it was during the like hardcore screamo like metal phase, and it was very much the same thing. You bring your gear up there, you play for like 25 minutes or less, and you bring it back to the van, and then like bandmates are getting fucked up in the parking lot and all that other shit.
That's it. It's just fucking partying after that,
Yeah. Well, so music, I mean, like when it came down to the music thing, was it game soundtracks that primarily like influenced your, like, did you notice soundtracks more, or was it more like after the music got introduced to you, like, bands and stuff like that, or being in a band and getting acquainted with like playing music, was like the game music always something that you were interested in, and then like you started playing instruments, or was it more like a you learned, you became a musician, and then now you're like, damn, this song actually fucking slaps. Let me get a vinyl of Castlevania,
Yeah, I'd say like I mean, I always loved actually playing those games in the past, like on Super Nintendo or whatever. I remember particularly with Konami games and some other games, you could go into the options and go to the scroll through all the sound effects or
Yeah.
scroll through all the BGM, the background music, and I would fucking play that shit on my TV like I was listening to a record or something. I'm
Hell
like,
yeah,
oh
man.
yeah, let's fucking bang this shit out. So I
That's
remember,
awesome.
yeah, I used to do that all the time too.
That's super cool. Yeah, that was I didn't I never really got into game music until later. It was like OC Remix was the website. It's still up, but I remember you talked about it on stream. You're like, there's a lot of good shit on there. There's also some really shitty stuff on there. I'm like, definitely true. I wanted to get into a little bit more on like the content creation portion, because like you're technically like a Twitch ambassador, right? And or you are a Twitch ambassador, and so like as far as the platform goes and your journey, I would consider you like a senior, like not an age, but like you've been on the platform for a while. You've been streaming for a while. You've been doing content creation a while. What do you see as like, for people who want to pursue this and like do this as something that they enjoy, what would be like some advice, I guess, that you would give them, like if they were going to start this journey?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really, I mean, like, make sure you've got something to share with other people and not just like, well, I like playing video games and I'm gonna put a camera and hit the record button. I feel like you should care enough about it to want to entertain, I think, 'cause that's the whole point, I think. And some people have it easier than others. Like when I came into it, like when I was working on the artwork for these games, a lot of the people that wanted to play them, sometimes like if they didn't want to host somebody that was also playing, whatever game it was, some people would host me. So, and there was already like a big community within like that were playing Epoch. So I kind of had a foundation of like of a community or some type of draw and a lore before I really got into it, because I rotated into it from that.
Yeah,
The
you pivoted.
idea was like, hey, I'm just working on video games, and we're gonna see where it goes. So yeah, I definitely pivoted into that, just because it was working out well, and I don't know, just stayed at it because it was like,
Yeah.
hey, like I can do this now. I don't have to go get a 9 to 5. I can fucking do this as long as I'm putting in work and I care about it. And I
And you
learned
feel
pretty
proud
early
about it, right? Too. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
As long as because I think one of the biggest things that's always bothered me about some broadcasters, they don't know how transparent they really are. Like, you have to treat your audience like I mean, unless you want only dumb people watching you, let's not go on to that. Like, you have to understand there's a lot of really intelligent people out there, and you shouldn't underestimate their intelligence, because people are going to see like right through you most of the time. You're like a glass wall, like whatever. If you're not being genuine, people are generally going to see right through it, and that's a big turnoff for a lot of people. I mean, I know it is for me.
Yeah.
When I see somebody who seems like they're insulting my intelligence or just being ingenuine, I'm just like, all right, whatever, dude.
No, I definitely feel that. I feel like the genuineness of people, like, it definitely comes down to the whole life experience thing. Like, how much life have you lived and like what have you been through? And like there's a intention you can recognize like with people almost immediately when speaking with them, or I don't know, it's super weird. I guess like the craziest thing to me about just the community you've built and like Gashden and all of that, like it's been really cool to just be a part of that community and also just have a bunch of reasonable people that are in chat like regularly. What do you think that is? Do you think it's like a mutual respect? Like you understand that there are intelligent people and you treat them intelligently and like you expect them to act intelligently, and so that's just reflected like in your community and like how everybody acts? Because it's just, to me it's fucking bonkers, because like I mean, to me, I know a lot of people associate you with like roasting people, but I never saw you as that person. Like, it's funny, it's fucking funny. Because what you're really doing is you're picking up a mirror and you're like, look, you look fucking stupid. Like, did you even read what you typed? You know, like, and it's just a matter of you're literally showing them. Literally, chat comes up, you know, you put on the small voice for the entertainment purposes, but like the person seeing them represented in that way, and they can't help but like either have that ego death where they're like, okay, well, I fucked up, that was stupid, I shouldn't have said that, or you know, they get banned. Like one of the two. Right. So what do you think that was? Do you think it's just like a kind of luck thing, or like?
I feel like over time, because like, you know, I've been casting enough of a net like for long enough. Oftentimes there's a lot of people. I mean, clearly, if you look at like any channel that's, you know, got over a certain amount of like people watching it, there's a lot more people watching and not typing than there are actively in chat.
True. Yeah.
More often than not. So I don't know. I feel like sometimes because, you know, they don't want to be a part of the noise, or they're just enjoying themselves doing other things. But whenever people are, I don't know. I feel like whenever people are being disrespectful primarily, and just being dumb otherwise, I don't know. There was a point where I was like, I gotta put my foot down. Like, this is fucking bullshit. You know, like, you know, anyone else who like, you know, I don't know. Like, once you start doing that, and I think that comes from like having managed in the past, like, you know, having people working under me, like in the maintenance field, that like I learned very early on that like you need to set the precedent of what your expectations are very early and stick to them.
Yeah.
Because if you're slack and you let everything kind of slide, and then you want to like, hey, we know, but we need to do this, you get a lot of pushback for that. So I feel like keeping it under control, but it's mainly about respect, I think.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's pretty important. Like, people don't want to be disrespected, you know, especially when they come to a place for entertainment. Like, what the fuck? Imagine if you were watching TV and then like a commercial came out that started calling you out and talking shit about you. You'd be like, what the fuck is this? In my own home?
Yeah.
In front of my family? Are you kidding me?
The disrespect. You know? Yeah.
I mean, like, I don't know.
No, that's really cool. Like, I just it's not something that I've ever experienced before, and that was one of the reasons why like I've stuck around for so long, and I'm sure other people have too. It's just, it's a common ground where you understand that you're going to be respected, and the people there are respectful, right? And then like on occasion you get to see a fucko in chat who, you know, doesn't know how to do that, and you have to make an example of them, or just have a little bit of fun with them, you know?
Yeah,
it's interesting.
I mean, there's a lot of times where you know, it's not always like that. Sometimes stuff slips through, or like, you know, I'm really like tunnel visioned on a game, and like there's just enough people in chat that are kind of being shitty that like the vibe gets thrown off. But, you know, I mean, you just do what you can to keep that kind of stuff under control. And also the moderation team is fucking awesome.
Yeah.
And Ad says, really, it's the mods that keep the train running. Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of truth in that too. I mean, you kind of realize who those people are on down the line, you know. And someone were like, hey, I'll help out, you know, like, oh, super cool.
Yeah, that's I don't know, man, it's just super cool to see that you have like this sort of mutual respect, and like you have mods and people in chat that like you said, when you stated that like you have expectations for behavior and like what you want to accomplish, I think that does a really good that's really good advice for anybody who's like is looking to be successful or like build their own community. Because how like you said, if you give people a little bit too much, then you have to be like, well, I guess we should fix that, right? But that doesn't make any sense. You know, you have to be confident in the direction and how you want people to act and behave from the start, and then from there it's just a matter of like correcting the steering wheel every so often, right?
Right. Yeah.
Makes sense.
I mean, like with chat, I mean, the same thing happens with chat too. There's a lot of streamers out there that have let it go apeshit forever, and the only way that people communicate with them is through donations, because chat is complete spam, crazy shit. Right. And I've seen it many times in the past where like they finally want to try to clean up the community a little bit, and like any little thing they do, even just like someone who's being really fucking shitty and they try and get rid of them, the whole chat is spamming colon D, you know, and like there's all this pushback. And that's
Yeah.
from the people that are active in chat. There's probably a lot of people watching. They're like, yeah, finally, we're going to clean this place up. And then they see that chat is totally like in disagreement with that, you know, they're just, so it's like, it's almost impossible because they get just bum rushed by, you know, all these, this negative shit. So I don't know. You got to keep it under control. Otherwise you get overwhelmed. It's like fucking dealing with zombies, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
You got to take them out one at a time while you can, you know, while you can get that brain shot.
Yeah. That makes sense. That's super enlightening to like hear. Honestly, it's just I don't know. I never really like thought about it like that in that context. It's weird to have these ideas like kind of floating around in your head, and then like you say something and it just like it's grounding. You know, that makes perfect sense to me. I think that's great advice for anybody who's like looking to do something, and like sharing your own experiences and stuff. That's something that like I've always tried to be really forthright about, and I totally agree. Like you can be way too transparent about your own life, and I'd rather like be watching a stream and then like somebody open up with via conversation, you know, like that just naturally occurs while a game is being played. Or like you know, you kind of do this as well. You just, oh, that reminds me of, and you share like a little bit about yourself, you know. And so over time it's not like you get a whole complete picture, but you sort of get to have a fundamental understanding of like who this person is, their values, that sort of thing, by how they represent themselves online, whether they intended to or not. And you've done a really good job for somebody who's like not present on Twitter or anything like that, and you're primarily using like Twitch. It's honestly really cool to see you sort of not be like oversharing or anything like that, and just sort of exist and be confidently Sequisha and all of that. And I guess like that leads me in my next question, like how do you decide, like how did you decide that you were going to be Sequisha primarily and like not share so much about like personal life or anything? I mean obviously you share Igor and you share Band Party, and like your happiness is displayed there, but it's not like, you know, you're going on podcasts or anything. Does nobody approach you like for conversation or anything like that? Or
I mean, I'm kind of a, you know, since I'm kind of a lone wolf in a lot of ways, I guess, because probably due to schedule and whatever else, I've just kind of got like my own like plan, you know, like what I'm doing, and it's been working out well because like, you know, a lot of that comes from I don't want to have to rely on someone else to do my job, you know what I mean? Because like all my presence online is essentially like, you know, I mean, even though not a big one, it's still like a public figure. In some regard. So I mean, you know, I've had like a lot of relationships with other people online. You know, not work out or came back to burn me or whatever. So that's almost like more so. It's like, okay, I just need to kind of focus on like what I'm doing, you know, and make sure that we're steamrolling ahead and doing the right thing ultimately. Because like sometimes you get tangled up with other people that have either like every time you have an interaction with somebody, it's almost like whenever someone observes the interaction between these two people, everything that they've ever done and all of their cumulative past comes together into like this, you know, this idea, you know, and like I don't know, and I feel like all parties are kind of judged from it sometimes, so it's kind of, yeah, I don't know, just one of those things. I try not to get too involved with too many other people because the shit changes all the time, you know.
Yeah,
it's not like I don't want to like share spotlight with or whatever, but I try to just kind of, you know, do my thing. And also another thing too, I love playing with some people I get along with, but it makes it really difficult to do that sometimes when or to keep up with chat and have like a conversation and talking about something without constantly like getting interrupted, you know, because they might not know that I'm talking to chat about this and they're just like, oh yeah, just banging on about whatever, you know.
yeah,
I mean, like chat knows and understands this too, that if you're that if I'm playing with someone else and we're talking all the time, like there's definitely not a conversation going on between me and chat. We're not talking about something and observing, so it's kind of with that immersion level, I think too. It makes it much easier if it's just me at the wheel, you know.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I guess like I guess my next question would be related to like your the work life balance portion, because you do stream a lot. You did like a casual 24 hour stream yesterday, which is like fucking wild to me, man. The stamina you have is crazy. I think like you've talked a little bit about how when you go to sleep, like you're fucking out. Like that's a super big blessing. So I don't know if like that's a big factor in it, but the fact that you can just do that casually is crazy to me, because I've been there a few times where like I'm going to work and I come in the next day and I'm like looking at the uptime and I'm like, fuck, dude, that's crazy. But I guess like a lot of it has to do with just like your I did this with Rust recently, so thank you for getting me into Rust. But I think like a lot of the games you play, especially getting back into the DayZ, the gear in your head is constantly turning, so like that's what's fueling you to keep going.
Yeah,
and
kind of.
yeah, and so you're riding that momentum until you're like, okay, well, I guess I can get off now, you know?
Yeah, until I start feeling like soulless and empty inside. It's like, all right. Or when I start making the delirious jokes that like I think are hilarious and not too many people other are, I know it's probably about time for me to clock out, you know?
Yeah, those
like,
are late.
I'm on a different level than they are right now. They might not be ready for what's coming, you know?
Yeah, so it's, the way I think about it is like getting back into the fucko lounge after you left like the night before. You're like, Sec, you're still here, huh? You say some fucking weird shit to us and we're like, okay.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, but like the self-sacrificing thing, like did you have to battle that when you were streaming? Was that something that like when you started streaming, like were you over streaming? Like how did you handle that part of yourself that you struggled with, that you talked about, like the like giving too much, you know?
Like that's one of those things that that's just worked out, I think, over time, because I've always kind of been like this. I've always kind of had a like if I was playing a video game, like renting from renting Mega Man X for the Super Nintendo from Blockbuster, that one weekend, I would burn through that game. I would be going to sleep late as fuck, sneaking it on my TV. I'd have like an hour of sleep before I went to school the next day, and then I'd repeat that shit. Like I've always been like this.
Okay.
There just happens to be a camera and another computer and hey, people hanging out with me now, so I don't really feel like it's been a sacrifice. It's just added, it's like I got a party coming with me now, so
yeah. No, that's super cool. Yeah, you're the hyper focus portion. Like I feel the same as somebody who's got ADHD. Those moments where like you're just hyper focused and like riding the wave and you're like working, like those moments are so few and far between. And when you have that, like feeling the momentum, like you just gotta fucking go with it. And that's super cool.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think this is a good portion to get into like the questions that were submitted. So thank you everybody who was submitting questions for Sec. While I'm pulling those up, I know all of you are probably already following Sec already, but here his Twitter and Twitch link if you're not already. All right, so it looks like we got about 9 questions. Berserk being the first one. I knew he was gonna do this because he was in here yesterday talking about this. Hash browns, love them, hate them, need a delivery man to bring you some? Question mark.
Well, they're pretty good. You can't have too many of them though. They get like really greasy.
Yeah.
If you get too much grease, like at the beginning of the day, it can make you kind of sluggish. But they're nice when they're kind of crisp on the outside, and then they've got like the moisture and kind of juicy potato on the inside. For sure.
Agreed. Yeah, hash browns. I don't know. They just fucking slap, dude. I'm a big fan of. I'm a big fan of hash browns, especially when they're crispy on the outside and they got that in layer too. Get some salt in there, some fucking. It's so good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, man. Breakfast food is just like god tier. I don't know what it is about it. I think it's just the savoriness, but like breakfast food is something that I'm especially impassioned about. Like, don't get me wrong, I love a good steak. I love a good, but breakfast food just like hits the fucking spot, like regularly, man.
And I have a gripe actually on hash browns. I really like McDonald's. I really don't like McDonald's. I I really haven't eaten there much. I think in the last like decade, really.
Yeah.
But I will get, if I do get anything from there, the breakfast hash browns are fucking pretty awesome.
Agreed.
They are. But have you ever been to a Bojangles? I don't know
No.
where geographically you are. Okay, they're more in the southeast, but
Okay.
they have these things called bow rounds, which are like, like kind of like fat, like coin size, like hash browns, but they're a bit fatter than that. It's more like a silver dollar, and they're really thick. They're just not good though, because it's like they're so thick that like they don't get like crispy on the outside. It's kind of like soft.
Ugh.
It's got like a weird like spice to it. Anyway,
You gotta have a good texture with the hash browns, man. Like
Yeah.
without the texture, they're just fucking potatoes. And like, don't get me wrong, I love potatoes, but if I ordered hash browns, my expectation is that I'm getting hash browns. You know what I mean? So, Dabs, I'm in Illinois. I'm in like the suburbs of Chicago. So
I think he lives there.
yeah. I remember past experience. He was like talking about how he was drinking like a half-acre beer, and I was like, oh, I know where they are. He's like, what? Oh, cool. Edge says, will you marry me? Question mark. What do you think?
Liz, to you?
No, to you.
Oh, I mean, like, I think he's still married, so I think that's. Or wait, is he officially divorced now? I don't know.
Edge, follow-up question.
I mean, he says he's single now. Okay. Well, I'm taken. I got band party, Igor and Onyx. We got this whole little thing going on. Edge is funny. He's a funny guy.
Agreed.
Have you ever hung out in his dream before?
Yeah. I was watching him build the first like Geshten hotel, dude. It was fucking chaos. It was really cool to see. Yeah, he's a good dude. I figured like not to like metaphorically suck your own dick, but pretty much anybody you associate with or like give an endorsement to, I pretty much have a good idea that they're going to be a quality human, and Edge is definitely one of those, man. He's a good dude.
I've made mistakes in the past, but yeah. Yeah, it's just cool.
Yeah. Scoozin has a question of where did you grow up and how did you get into playing guitar / music? It looks like we answered the second half of that question, but do you want to get into like where you grew up?
Just kind of like rural, like North Carolina, like kind of like around the Raleigh area.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool.
It is pretty rural out here. You get outside of the city, and there's a lot of deer on the road and shit like that. A lot of trailers.
A lot of trailers, yeah.
A lot of trailers out here. Yeah.
Is that where the southern like accent stuff that you do on stream, like the impressions and everything, is that where that comes from? Like running into those fucking people?
Yeah. Actually, like it's funny because I grew up mostly around people that had a really heavy southern accent, but I disliked it so much because like my parents were from they grew up in New York in the Bronx.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't have a super heavy accent. My mother still did, but and I know they didn't really like the local twang that much either, and a lot of the sayings were kind of annoying, and I shared that, so it was kind of, I don't know. I mean, like I still feel like I'm definitely a Southerner. There's no doubt about that. There's a lot of things that are positive about it, but yeah, a lot of the ignorant hilljack stuff I like to make jokes about.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, you grew up in the South, like you're gonna have that as part of your stream. It's just natural that would be a part of your personality,
Yeah.
Let's see here. So this is a pretty in-depth question. I feel like we kind of got into this like just throughout the conversation, but feel free to like pick and choose a specific experience if you want. This is from Etten the Breton. How many times has your life trajectory dramatically changed? And you kind of answered that. You said like a few times, a lot of rock bottoms and stuff.
It's been, yeah. A lot of it like based on relationships too. Like our relationship would go down in flames and it was just like, like I'd be completely fucked.
Yeah.
There's probably a good bit of the relationship like experience in the past too that's had probably a pretty big impact on like on relying more on like on myself and improving on myself rather than becoming entirely dependent on someone else. 'Cause it's never good in the end. whenever you like throw yourself at somebody and like you don't have and you lose your own focus and your own drive and your own vision,
Yeah.
you'll
Your
find a lot of
independence.
times, yeah, if you're not following your own vision, I feel like the other person, it's probably like if your life is only about theirs, that gets really annoying, like really quick.
100%. Yeah. I think like that just kind of comes I think it just kind of comes with just relationship experience. I think it's really easy to like have a shit relationship, and as somebody who's had plenty of those and is now like married to the love of my life or whatever, I say that in quotes because it's such a weird fucking phrase to me. Like basically the best relationship I ever got, or advice that I ever got or figured out from my life experience, is that if you can't exist independently, confidently and being yourself, then together, then you're gonna slowly but surely start like gravitating towards that person's needs or wants, and then like yours start to dissolve and become theirs. You know what I mean? So like you don't exist independently, and then you kind of get consumed by it, and you get spit out eventually, right? Enough times. So as long as you like you said, like existing independently, knowing what your wants are, and being honest about like your intentions and what you'd like to do, eventually you land yourself into a good space. You find your band party, or like the princess, if you see her in chat. That's my wife. The second part of this question was, how do you deal with exhaustion from that changing all the time until you finally arrive at something stable? So I guess that's going back to, I guess, the relationships. Like, though you were burned by quite a few of those, like how did you pick yourself back up? What was like the reset? Was it just, we kind of touched on this, but
I mean, you have to, you don't have a choice.
Yeah.
You got to do it, and you got to carry through it. And like every time you do it and you get back into a good spot, you realize you're like, hey, like that was an important experience for me. Everything you learn from it becomes another tool, on your belt. So you'll be prepared for the next similar scenario. You'll be able to navigate it much better. And I mean, you just kind of you have to carry on and keep rocking.
Yeah, that's perfectly put. You have to. There really isn't like a choice. You could wallow in it, but I think a lot of people are really hard on themselves. I know I was, especially like growing up. It was just like you put a lot of and I think it's self-induced, self-induced like burden, like what did I do wrong, blah blah blah, like all this stuff. But honestly, it's without having gone through the experiences, like you wouldn't fucking know. Like you have to go through those experiences. A lot of people are like, oh, it's my first time going through it. Like, I mean, sometimes you fuck up, you fail, like it doesn't work out. Like that's normal. You kind of get that with the more life you live, I guess, right?
Yeah, I mean, eventually, like we don't, especially when we're looking for the answers like that. We have so many questions. Eventually comes a time where it all starts making sense. Your path. You look back at your path, and then like it totally makes sense, because you wouldn't be, where you're at, without the journey there.
Right.
So yeah, it's one of those things. And when it finally does start making sense, I don't know. I think it has the potential to make you a very happy individual. So
agreed.
It's a good idea to stick around until you start, until your number comes up. I mean, like the law, like what probabilities, like your number is eventually going to pop up.
Yeah.
Especially if it hasn't for a very long time. That means it's much more likely to pop up.
Agreed.
I mean, these are quick maths, of course.
Yeah.
But,
quick maths. The Sec 200 right here. But no, I agree.
You got to keep rolling that dice, man. That's the dice. I mean, you're going to get snake eyes, everyone's going to get snake eyes. But you might roll that. And when you do, it's going to be very sweet.
Agreed. Yeah, I think a lot of that, just to add on top of it, is just it just eventually, like, you exist independently, confidently. The way I talk about it is like gravitational pulls. Like eventually you just like get into the right circle, and like the gravity of like who you are as a person vibes with or is in the same like accordance with like another planet, aka person, and then they just kind of get brought towards you, and then you get acquainted, and then it's like, okay, well now you're here, you know, and now you're like both benefiting from like the orbit. You're both in orbit, existing independently, confidently as yourselves, and the relationship that you have enhances who you are as a person, and doesn't like, it's not like yeah, it just enhances you more as it makes you more fucking, what's the word, more
It's spicy.
spicy. Yeah. Yes. Let's see, here we go. Who does Igor love more, Sequisha or Band Party? What do you think?
Oh, definitely Band Party right now.
Yeah, she's
But I'm like the crazy uncle right now. You know? He's like, I love crazy uncle because we get to do the fun stuff. You know.
yeah.
She's been. I mean, you know, I help take care of him too, but she has been like, you know, really on top of taking care of him, and it's good. She does a great job. She helps shape some very good boys. So.
Has she
like Onyx is amazing.
Oh, okay. Was Onyx her pup before?
Right, yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
Onyx is her. She's had him for like 10 years.
Holy shit, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh,
A big healthy doggo.
handsome, healthy doggo. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So this one comes from Bear Butcher. In my early online gaming experience, I remember Splinter Cell Double Agent the most. Spies versus mercenaries. That shit was fucking cool. I remember that. My question is, why do you think we don't experience this type of gameplay anymore with these mechanics? Hope this makes sense. Doesn't really make sense.
I didn't play that particular one. What console was that on? Was that on the 360?
It was, yeah.
Okay, I didn't have a 360. I played the first Splinter Cell, which I thought was really cool.
Same.
I guess what type of mechanics are they talking about? More like the spy type of stuff?
Well, the gameplay was really fucking cool. Basically, you had two spies that were in third person, and then they were versing mercenaries that were guarding an area or protecting like data or something that the spies were trying to get to. And they were in first person. So it was an FPS versus like third person
okay, yeah.
co-op mode. And it was really cool. I mean, you had like heat vision, night vision, like all the stuff from the first game, but they put it into a multiplayer experience. And honestly, Bear Butcher, that shit was fucking cool. I don't understand why we don't have like a game like that now. I think like that would absolutely be a really cool thing to put back in. But
yeah, like perspective is always really cool, like in an asymmetrical game, to mix it up. The only game that I can think of off the top of my head that's doing that now is like Dead by Daylight, because the survivors have a third person camera.
Right.
You're playing hide and seek against the the killer who is first person, and that dynamic is really cool, like the limited vision, the change. I guess the last other game that was kind of like that was I mean kind of Natural Selection, the Natural Selection 2.
oh yeah,
which was like kind of had that mix of the real-time strategy for the commander to setting up the resources.
yeah.
I really would like a game kind of like that again to pick up and pop off. I think it would do well. I mean, there's other games that are doing stuff like that too, like Resident Evil Resistance was really cool.
Yeah.
Like the mastermind, your only controls are on the camera,
Right.
or
right.
sometimes you could take over a zombie or whatever. But
Yeah.
I think I don't know. Asymmetrical games are hard to do, hard to balance. Oftentimes they're not balanced, but they have to be fun enough to make up for the imbalances. I feel like
Agreed.
there has to be some way to make it worth it. But yeah, that's where the esports handies come in and fuck it all up. So
Yeah. Is that what happened with Resistance? Like, is that why you stepped away from it, or was it?
No. That game, there were some pretty sweaty players playing that. But
Okay.
there was actually like a lot of cheaters that were just, speed hacking and doing all kinds of stuff in that game. And the community wasn't that big at all. So queue times took forever. And I think that's partially due to the fact that the game itself wasn't individually for sale. It came bundled with Resident Evil 3, which was really expensive for a lot of people. So I don't think they got anywhere near the amount of people. It wasn't as accessible. That's the main issue, I feel like. So
I agree. Yeah, if it was bundled with the other game, you're limited to the people who like purchased Resident Evil 3 and that game was pretty divisive, like from what I recall, in terms of whether people enjoyed it or not. So I'm not entirely
Right.
sure, like, you know, how big the community was allowed to do. If I'm sure if they came out with it like as an independent thing, that would have been pretty neat too, just as like
Yeah.
a free to play or like a $15, you know, multiplayer game or something like that.
I felt like Resident Evil 3 was good too, but like all it takes is one person to have such a convincing argument of like, yeah, this game does it, and then everyone else is like, yeah, I haven't even played it, but man, that game sucked, you know. Like, I mean, like the people fall into like this hive mind type of stuff all the time, you know.
Yeah.
Like, oftentimes I don't even like listening to somebody's. I don't even like watching the trailer for a lot of movies because I feel like it might give away too much. I want to, you know, experience it like you know, unfiltered. I don't want to have anyone else's, you know,
Perspective or
suggestions and
filter or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, their opinions on it. I just want to experience it for my own and make
Yeah.
my own decision on it. I feel like I enjoy stuff so much more like that.
Agreed.
Yeah, and having other people's, depending on other people's opinions and stuff all the time, I feel like kind of ruins the like learning exploration whole experience for me. That
Nope.
that's more of a personal like kind of, you know, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people feel that way too, but that's definitely more
Yeah.
of a personal like. There's only, you know, so many. Like I've experienced a lot of things in media and everything else that like that little bit of magic that's in there. You know, I want to get every single bit that I can. You know.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I don't think you're alone in that, because like when it comes down to just the human experiences in general, I can't help but all these systems and communication things that we have in place, like social media, all that stuff, is just a reflection of like how we communicate and exist as people to a certain regard, in my mind anyway. And so like when I see, you know, people's like reviews and stuff like that, it does like, we didn't have the fucking internet growing up. So like when you saw a movie or played a game, like, you know, renting a game from Blockbuster and then just being like super fucking excited about it because you didn't read anything about it and figuring out the game mechanics and all that stuff. It's so like seldom these days because we have, you know, the internet and all this information being shot at us, especially for like movies. I do the same thing, man. It's not even about like having a pure experience. It's just like, let me go into the experience without any expectations so that I can experience the game myself or the movie myself, and then like use my own judgment and my ability to understand things to like come out from it. I'm trying to think, the last thing I did that with was Hereditary.
Yeah.
That was the last movie that I did that with. I was like, everybody's talking
I
about
thought
that
it was
shit.
great.
Yeah, it's fucking dope. It was crazy. The imagery, the sounds, like the acting, like all of that was crazy fucked up. But it was so cool. Like it was nice to have that pure thing. And if I had watched a trailer or whatever, or like read a review, it's just, now I've got somebody else's eyes or filter in front of me and it's not my experience anymore, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny when we're talking about experience like that or like old video games and going through it without like, you know, the internet or strategy guides.
Yeah.
There was a thing that I did. I think I was in, I want to say, man, I think it was in between 8th and 9th grade or 9th and 10th grade, somewhere in there. It was like the beginning of high school. I was playing, I got a PlayStation for, you know, for one of my birthdays. I think it was my older brother's old PlayStation. He like let me borrow it and got me Final Fantasy 7 and Resident Evil 2. And
those are some fucking solid games to start off with.
yeah. And I remember, I think that summertime, I want to say it was the summer that I was playing Final Fantasy 7 in between school. And one of the things that I did to beat the Emerald Weapon was you know, I learned about the lucky 7 thing with your health, you know, where you could have like if your character's health got onto like 777 or 4 sevens, I forget which one it was. I think it might have been 3 or I don't think it mattered. It was one of them. It had to be at least 3, I think. That your character did like a bunch of attacks for 7777, like which is back to back to back to back until everything was either dead or like up to a certain amount, like 60 times or some shit. Well,
Wow.
I would go to a lower level area to get my health exactly to like just before that, and then I had a health materia that I could pop in like outside of combat, and it would add up to 7, you know, whatever. So it wouldn't fire it off like in combat, and I'd do that right before the Emerald Weapon, and using that, and then Knights Around and other shit, I ended up beating it, and like it would have been like impossible for me to do that otherwise. That amount of damage, like
Yeah.
um, And turns out that what I was doing, in sitting on a crappy chair thing that I got from the thrift store in the middle of my room playing this thing, uh, that very thing that I did is now is a strategy for speed runs on the fucking game, So it's like one of those things, like exploring and finding the stuff for yourself is like, you can come up with some pretty interesting stuff.
Right.
Whereas if you went through the guide and you went through and did this, the things as it said in the guide, you may not, come up with an interesting strategy like that.
Yeah.
So,
So you just did that through experimentation and like
oh
found
yeah,
out that was the case.
right, yeah,
That's fucking cool. Like,
yeah. I mean,
and
where
as a
it's like,
kid too, like you felt like a fucking god. I bet. Like when you figured that out, that's super.
I mean,
cool.
I figured that was, yeah, it was like, how the fuck would anyone else beat this without doing this?
Yeah,
Like right here.
that makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah,
over
yeah,
leveling
next
or
round of
whatever.
mimic.
Like fuck that. I don't have that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's wild. Super cool.
Mhm.
All right. So next question. This goes into the relationships. How did you and Band Party meet?
We actually met at like PAX East in like 2016 or 17, one of the two. I think it was 17 because it was like right after Conan Exiles had come out. I met her just briefly. She was at the Funcom Conan Exiles like booth. I was gonna pop by there because I was streaming it a bunch and like see like maybe talk to one of the devs or whatever. Like, hey, I've been streaming a bunch. And like I went up there like, yeah, that's cool. If you want to get in line to play, like it's over there. I was like, okay, all right, I'm fucking out of here. But like Band Party was there and she was really nice because I think she was doing a raffle like giveaway thing at the time.
Okay.
And I don't know. We talked for a moment and said I'm from Raleigh. Like she's like, no way, I'm from like that area too. Like anyway, and then fast forward several years. Actually, it might have been like a year or two, but I saw her again at Gamescom, and in Germany, and at the PUBG party. She was there. She was working. They were like signing esports, you know, looking for people for esports because I was in a big invitational tournament, and I saw her at that party there. And yeah, we took a picture there together, but I didn't hang out with her then. And then fast forward, yeah, more years, and then she was back in town, and we hung out one time, and then that was it. That was all she wrote.
That's how it started. Very cool.
Yeah.
That's cool that she's been around for like a long time too. It's kind of weird how life brings you back into back together. It's weird. It's like that gravitational pull thing I was talking about.
Yeah. Now we got a little monster goblin Igor.
Yeah. Maw together, yeah. Let's see who we got. Why is Igor the best pupper? Well, we already know. He's a goddamn cute ass pup. He's a good dog too. You were telling me.
Yeah. He's super good.
For being
for like
super
how
young.
old he is.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like going outside and stuff. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy. It could be also band parties, like just experience with, dogs in general. I'm sure that's helping quite a bit too.
Yeah.
We kind of answered this question. What got you into guitar? It was music, hanging out with your brothers and stuff. Did you have like anything else additional to that or?
Not really. Oh, I think actually one of the main reasons I think I got into guitar is because there was a kid that kind of lived relatively nearby. Like he was from a much wealthier family, and I think he took like his dad gave him one of his like crappier guitars, I guess,
Mhm.
because his dad was a musician, and he sold it to me for like nothing, because he was like probably trying to buy like weed with it or something. So I was like, hey, I got a guitar now. I'm like, cool, and I was listening to a bunch of rock and roll. I started learning what was that, like Fu Manchu was the band Fu Manchu. It's like pretty like heavy stoner rock.
Yeah.
All
Power
the stuff was
chords.
really
Yeah.
just real easy to play. But yeah, so that was the El Guitar Numero Uno. It was a Squire Telecaster. It fucking really sucked, but because you
Stepping
go to bend
stone,
it,
man. Yeah.
I'd go to like try and learn to bend a string, and all my the strings are all fucked because like I I was like, there's strings on there and they're all rusty and shit. Like these strings would have like visible like fucking thick rust on it, or if you went to like go play, like your fingertips would be rusty. Like really bad.
Yeah.
And super thick strings. You go to bend a string and like the bridge, because of the way the bridges are in the Telecaster, and I think this bridge was particularly shitty. You go to bend a string, the fucking the bridge would move too. The bridge would, so
Holy
like
shit.
the note like wouldn't change. I don't know. It was fucking really weird.
So you're just like moving the whole guitar as opposed to like just the part that needs to move.
It had these individual like kind of little floating string guides, I guess, on the back of the bridge, and they kind of floated around a little bit. They weren't like super like snug in there, you know.
Okay, that makes sense.
But, yeah, piece of shit.
Let's see. Extraterrestrial says, "Tell us the kidney stone story." You obviously do not have to. I feel like that's a special time.
No, yeah. It was the worst ever. It was the worst ever. I looked back on some of my Twitter timeline where I took a picture, a selfie before I went in, and then another one like right before the procedure happened.
Yeah.
And then like I took a picture because I was still all like fucked up on these drugs and shit. Where like I'm holding up, like they wanted me to take a piss after the procedure into like this little screen to like, you know, filter out whatever stones or whatever. And in one of these milk carton things they have at hospitals that are just always, you know, it's got like a lid that screws on it.
Yeah.
Like bedpan or whatever. And it looked like the like really dark, like sweet tea. It was so dark, and like, because I guess like my kidneys were kind of like, there was an infection in there, and they were just backed up, and it was just blood from who knows what. But yeah, it was pretty bad. That first piss was bad news.
Damn.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? Yeah. Come on, man. Extraterrestrial. All right. Jaden for the win, or FTW, says, "How does it feel to have the better mustache?" It's true.
What? I mean, yeah, mustache question. Did people ask you about yours? They're like,
no.
Oh, yeah.
No, they're like, you look like, they do the same thing in your channel with like Mario and stuff. Like,
yeah,
the whole like, you look like Flanders and all that. I'm like, howly dooley, you know?
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, no, right. Does anyone ever get asked, like anyone that's got a beard ever get asked, like if they like, hey, look, it's Al Borland? Or like, do they get stupid shit like that?
I
Probably.
do. I'd assume so. I don't know. Super weird. It's just facial hair. Like, I actually, funny story, I used to have, there was just, I don't know, people compliment the mustache a lot, right? And I'm sure you get it too. And I had like there was a YouTube, like compilation of like green screen edits that a YouTuber did. His name was iDubbbz. And he had like one where he pulled out like a tape measure, and he's like, oh, that's pretty big. Impressive. Like, I had that as like a green screen like scene where he would come up and then like measure my mustache on a zoom and like say that shit. And then I remember like that being like one of my jokes on the channel for a bit. And then that was actually how I got acquainted with you, because they were like, have you seen this guy's mustache? And this was like 2015 or so or something like that. And I was like, dude, this mustache is fucking huge. And I removed the scene. I was like, that doesn't make it, like, I can't even just be proud of that. Like, it's yeah, fucking ridiculous, man. Super weird how I got acquainted with you. It was just like the mustache thing. So by doing that on my channel with my mustache, that's how I got acquainted with yours and yourself, of course, you know. What does the Fucko Lounge look like in your mind? This is by JMWZ. That's the question.
Oh, I have a pretty good idea what it looks like even right now. You will all see. Yeah, it's like under construction right now. That's yeah.
That's super cool. I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
I figured that would be the case. So I was like, that's, you guys got the Fucko Lounge teaser here. Hell yeah. Let's see. This is from my wife, and this is a inside joke. So let me give context. So like the Game Awards were yesterday, and Jeff Keighley was wearing some fucking ridiculous shoes. And so like every time somebody would come on the screen, I was just, you know, asking, what shoes are you wearing? So that's my wife's question. Is what shoes are you wearing? Are you wearing shoes?
No, I'm not wearing any. I try not to wear Actually, I need some of those house loafers when it starts, because like it's gonna get really cold here soon. But I mean, like, dude, like this basement studio like stays mega warm. I mean, just like the two computers here and whatever other equipment I have on, like
Yeah,
it stays super warm in here.
that's
I have the
nice.
vents actually turned off for the heat because it'll get too hot in here. The rest of the house is like fine, but yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah, and pajama pants for sure. I'm wearing like these kind of, you can't
Cozy
really see
pants.
them. Yeah, just little cozy pants.
Yeah, the slippers definitely would recommend. I didn't even get into those until Leia did. I'm pretty sure when she moved in, she had them. She's Filipino, so she brought the whole like kit with her. It was like Ponset and house slippers. I think she had like 2 pairs of them.
Yeah, some moccasins. Yeah.
Let me see here really quick. How do you feel? This is from Colt Diggity. It says, how do you feel to have arguably the best stream quality and intro on Twitch? This is from Berserk. Oh, never mind. Colt Diggity logged a question for Berserk. So, how do you feel about having the arguably the best stream quality and intro on Twitch?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, like, it feels good to hear that. There's definitely a lot of people that have really good, like, content out there. But I mean, just like anything else, actually, you know what? This actually goes back to another thing too with streaming in general.
Mhm.
Is one thing I learned a really long time ago is no one does it alone. And if they do it alone, you don't have like your support network and other people that you're also sharing with and reciprocating with. You eventually fade away. I feel like I've seen it happen a whole lot. People that just take and take and take and don't give back.
Yeah.
I see them all the time. There's just people like that I still follow on Twitch, and I'll go to like throw up the following list at the end of a stream to like try and find like a raid target, and I'll see these people that they either like abandoned their community at one point, or were just weren't really good friends to other people that were helping them out. And I mean, you see the effects of that kind of shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, one of the main things, like with the intro, for instance, like that's like, Dear Someone is pretty much like a genius in this regard of like being aware of like what kind of content, like he just has that kind of gift of being able to see what could be encapsulated in time and working it together into a larger work. He can like identify it from the get-go. Whereas some people will just take whatever and splice it together, and it doesn't really have kind of like a feeling. He treats it kind of like an art piece.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it really helps too with like community members like submitting that kind of stuff, or being like, hey, or just even like making a solid clip of something, to help create that memory. So that, and the feedback, and with everyone else, because there's a lot of community members that are because I have set such high expectations like for like the broadcast and the fidelity of it. They give me a lot of feedback too. They're like, hey, there might be a couple things that are kind of like this is kind of weird, can you look into it? I always really appreciate that, because without that, I would just be kind of like getting by and not striving for more, because I have people that are kind of like let me know like, hey, you should step it up a little bit. So
Yeah.
I've always been appreciative of that. And like I wouldn't have that too. I wouldn't have that, or they wouldn't feel like I think welcome to make those suggestions if I just had a bunch of fucking random spamming assholes that didn't give a shit,
True.
that
Yeah.
instead of giving me the actual feedback, I'd have somebody that's like, stream quality omega lol, stream quality omega lol, and like it would just be this scuffed downward spiral of shit,
Yeah.
and
That
then
makes
the stream
sense.
would just be me like, me yelling at fucking chat and them trolling me with like long text-to-speech messages. And like, there's enough of those broadcasts on Twitch. It's not what I'm looking for. I don't want to have to physically have to prepare myself to take the abuse when I hit the fucking start streaming button.
God, I feel super bad for anybody who's like in that relationship with streaming.
There's a lot of people in that relationship.
Yeah. I don't know many of them. That shit is
they're like, I don't know, should I slip a dick on stream so I can get banned for 2 weeks so I can take a mental health break, like they're like thinking about it, like they got a dick on the other screen. They're like, should I switch the scene over to my other? And there's like sweat rolling down, and
Yeah,
I feel like that's happened before.
Oh yeah, I feel like I don't know. You gotta just trying to spice it up a little bit. I don't know. I was actually talking about this yesterday. I was playing Doom Eternal, and Berserk was asking me like, he asked me why I wanted to do an interview with you, and I was like, well, I just like genuinely am curious about like the human experience, and everybody's got their own value and like understanding and perception of like, you know, how they do shit. And so it's just interesting to talk through that thought process and everything. And then I was like, and on top of that too, like trying to find any content related to just you talking with people. Like I understand your schedule's like hectic. So when I reached out to you, I was like, I don't know when I'll hear back. I'm just going to be persistent, and I know he'll be respectful, you know, like when you do get to me. But I was the first thing that I watched was like a Scuffed podcast, and like the name definitely gives an accurate representation of what that whole thing is. And like my whole experience with it was just like, that's not what it just looked like a bunch of metaphorical like masturbation, you know, like literally.
I mean, like, yeah, like the Stuff podcast is definitely like it's not really like a podcast. It's meant to be kind of I think it's kind of like a perfect storm where it's just kind of chaotic.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
because like a lot of the people that train like invites onto the show are definitely people that are either like buzzing at the time, or they're kind of, you know, popping off, or they've already kind of been like that, you know, or up and comers or whatever. And it's more of like a Hollywood Squares type of like, you know, or like a bunch of celebrities thrown into like this kind of like half death match thing where, you know, there's obviously like whenever there is tension and they're screaming and shit, like, you know, quietly, that's why a lot of people are fucking there. You know, they want to
Yeah.
fucking see this dramatic shit like go down.
It's like an
As
episode of
long as-
Maury. Yeah.
yeah, right. You know?
Yeah. No, I agree. As long as it's entertaining, you know what I mean? That makes sense.
Yeah, but it's definitely its own thing for sure.
Agreed. Where so this one comes from Ivan underscore M11. Where did you get your type of sense of humor? Was it shows, family? I'd assume it was a combination of those two, especially your brothers.
Yeah. A lot of it from I mean, there's certain like brands of type of humor. Like me and my my younger brother, we have kind of a street smarts kind of like low blow you know, got him like type of humor.
Yeah.
And then my older brother like growing up, he used to watch a lot of the Marx Brothers and like, you know, like older films, old like, you know, classic, you know, Universal monsters and all kinds of old horror films. I grew up watching a lot of horror films. My older brother. There's a lot of like different types of humor there that are like a little bit kind of sillier and kind of a little bit classier. Yeah, I don't know. Having friends with all kinds of like, I think like really getting into like the meat and really like in depth kind of humor of things is kind of like I don't know. Yeah. I've just got a lot of, I guess, a lot of different inspiration from different people. I mean, in terms of there's a kind of a good question. I wanted to like go back to something else too, with all the little cuts on the stream and the little like the little asides, like the little camera angles and shit like that. Every time you watch like a show, you know how like there's all different types of like joke archetypes, or like or like on radio too, or they'll play like little buzzers for shit, you know, so all those little types of things, those are like little tools for the humor. So whenever I see something like that, like a tumble, like okay, so everything's really boring, and then like a fucking tumbleweed blows by, you know, that's one of those little joke archetypes, and like you know, shit like that's kind of funny. So whenever like the you know, whenever something fucked happens and I go over to like the other camera, you know, it's almost like staring at the studio audience. It's like, well, you know, I guess we're fucked now, you know, like, so I don't know, like trying to find a way to incorporate that type of stuff. You know, these are all like kind of jokes that people are a little kind of familiar to, like the format of these little micro things. Trying to find a way to put that into your cast is a lot of fun.
Agreed. Yeah, it's been really cool to see that like as a brand thing, quote unquote, for you. Like you really do use those like those pieces or art pieces and camera angles as like a like you said, like a tool. Like it's a way for you to bring the audience with you on that journey and make it more like intimate, as opposed to just like watching it on the cast and be like, huh, you know, like now I can actually like laugh and we're both like, everybody shit's fucked. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so our next question is from Sledge90. Let me see here really quick. This one's a big one. I want to build a gaming / music rig similar to yours. I see your equipment rack and get a little overwhelmed. What is a good starting point for necessary equipment purchases to be able to play and record to PC? Also put a shirt on, Kappa. Oh, was that the joke? Like,
the beach shirt, yeah. It's like the ultimate clickbait combination, having a mustache and a shirt where it looks like I'm naked.
So you saw that? Is that why you have that shirt? Like,
yeah. I went to the store and I bought it because I thought I was gonna look naked on stream. No,
but like, did you pick that? And you were like, I kind of look naked. You know what I mean?
No, I just fucking wore it one day and people were like, "Oh my god, the thumbnail! I thought you were naked. I was gonna see if I could flip your nipples, get you banned, or something." It's just random shit like that.
Yeah.
Actually, it happened twice today. Some guy was like, he's like, "Yeah, I'm trying to explain to my daughter that you have a shirt on. Can you like tell her?" And I'm just like, I kind of wrestled. I was like, "Well, have you guys gone over? Has she learned colors yet? Did you teach her about the color pink today?" Like, I don't know. But yeah, what was the other? Oh, the first part of that question. They're talking about budget rig for what? Playing guitar or something?
For PC and recording. Let me
What?
see here. Purchase to be able to play and record to PC. So music gaming rig. Yeah. So similar to what you do with the guitar and everything. What's a good starting point for necessary equipment?
I mean, if it is just, did it say guitar in there or
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Well, I guess gaming / music rig. So maybe not guitar.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Probably, I would think that anyone, if they wanted like a system that could do it all, they could probably build a Ryzen for like much less expensive Ryzen build, because they to stream off of too. Also, you could also stream off of the NVIDIA cards with the RTX stuff. Actually, I think even the 980s and up, like you can do the hardware encoding. Grass and stuff like that gets a little kind of blocky with the hardware encoding, but it takes a lot of heat off your CPU. That with like a Go XLR is probably I mean, you're using the Go XLR now, like, right? Yeah. I mean, like, it's pretty inexpensive for for what it does. It has phantom power on it too, right?
That's
I think it does for power mics. I believe it does. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
So I'm not that technical, but yes, it does power the mic off of it, if that's what you asked.
Right.
Yes.
Right, yeah.
And then our last question here. Poll. Guitar count, Kappa. That's from emo feline sad.
1, 2. I mean, does a bass guitar count?
That's a guitar.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 guitars.
7 guitars.
Including the bass. Yeah. One of them's acoustic, one's a bass, so like 5 electric guitars.
There you go. Guitar count complete.
This one right here, this is the most recent one. Super cool.
Yeah, that custom.
Donable Cyclops. Super rad guitar. It's super solid. Like, I was actually really surprised. I didn't think I would like it as much as I do. But it was kind of a gamble, kind of risk, kind of an investment too, because they're a relatively like newer company too. And one of the guy that Donable, he was a guitarist for a band that I was really into called Intronaut. They're super cool.
That's
very
awesome.
kind of like technical, kind of doom / like rock metal. Pretty interesting.
Very cool. That's it, man. That's we did the whole show.
We did the thing.
Yeah, we did the thing. Well, first of all, thank you for coming on the show and agreeing to do this with me. I really
Yeah.
appreciate you following up and talking with me about this. It's been one of the things that I've always wanted to do, and like this whole coming year, especially with how stressful this shit has been with like the pandemic and all that. It's been kind of reinvigorating to be like, okay, well, I'm fucking setting out to really do this talk show thing and like talk to as many people as possible. And I was like, I would love to have Sequisha on, so thank you so much for
Yeah, for
talking
sure.
with
Thanks
us,
for
man.
inviting me on and like being, being so patient with me. Cause I know like, you'd reached out a couple times and like, and I was just fucking so busy with stuff. I appreciate you being patient and working with me. But
Yeah.
it was a pleasure, man.
Yeah, no, I sincerely appreciate it, man. I knew what I was, like I said, I know you said you apologize, but I know how hectic your schedule is, and just thanks, man. I appreciate it.
I mean, I was gonna stiff you tonight. Okay, I was really into DayZ, but I'm just kidding.
Dude, I got like super. I knew you wouldn't, of course, but like it was just like there was this one thing in my mind when I saw you streaming for 24 hours yesterday. I was just like, damn, dude, he's really into this.
Part of the reason why I think, well, it was an added bonus for me doing that is I got to wrap around my schedule a little bit, because the way my schedule was previous to that totally cut into this time slot. So like I kind of kept that in mind. I was like, well, if I wrap around, I'll be able to spend the evening, hanging out, going to bed with band party, and like everything would kind of work out. So I need to do that every now and then, like kind of wrap it back around, because I get a little bit behind every time I go through a work like sleep cycle.
Yeah.
Because I'll work enough and then I sleep a ton, so I get like my schedule gets shifted around, a couple hours every time.
Oh yeah, and I know
gotta
you're
do that full reset.
Yeah, I know you're kind of like at the whim too of like when the motion happens, because like when you're riding that wave, like you're fucking there, So taking advantage of that's a big one. So thank you. I guess before we wrap up and finish up here, do you have any questions for me about like anything that we went over, or me in particular? I guess I always like to give some time to.
Yeah. What is that? Is that a weather vane back there? But it's got like is that all the like the map kind of? I guess all the country or all the continents on it.
Yeah. That's
cool,
my that's my wife's like PC game setup.
Oh, okay. I was like, damn, you got like crazy PC setup. So she likes the game a lot too. That's awesome.
Yeah. We built her first PC this year. It was something we did recently. It's it's like a little small short box PC, but she before that she wasn't really a gamer. She was playing like Destiny on PlayStation on occasion, but now she's like super into Rainbow Six Siege, and like I started playing League of Legends because of you. And she was like, oh, I'm gonna try it too because you're new to the game and we'll learn together. I'm like, okay, cool. So
great.
Yes.
Are you guys yelling at each other a lot when you're playing it, or
well, we both don't really know what we're doing yet, but
right.
yeah, she was playing Morgana, and like she was actually doing really fucking good.
Morgana's awesome.
Yeah,
it's just because she gets banned a lot because she's just a solid champ.
Right. Yeah, but it was it's been really cool. This whole like the quarantine for us this year was like we actually, it was really weird because like I was just thinking about I'm reminded of this constantly because we went to Japan this year, like for our honeymoon, after like a year of being married. And so we were in Japan from February like 28th until March 11th. And the day we get back was like when they did the travel ban and all those people were like flooding into O'Hare Airport. It was fucking wild. So we got super lucky. Yeah.
Yeah. We were actually in that's where I got that little Mega Man thing back there.
Oh,
we were in, we were in New Orleans like a week before. Actually, like we the announcement of COVID was there. It was in March, and it was like I think when we got back a couple days later, everything was like shutting down and travel ban and all that shit.
Yeah,
that was that was the same thing. It wasn't quite Japan and all that. I bet that was fucking nuts though.
It was fucking wild, man. Yeah, it was crazy because they had cut. I don't think we'll ever get that same experience ever again. Just because when we were there, they had stopped China travel. So there was like 80% less people everywhere we went. So it was crazy. Like the trains were freed. It wasn't overcrowded. Like eating out was super easy. It was just like, you know, go down the street. You didn't need a reservation, nothing like that. And I don't know if you've ever been to Japan, but 100% would recommend. Like, as somebody who's like all about like quality and like good food and all that, it's fucking insanely amazing.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna that's in the plans for sure. I'm not exactly sure where. We were looking up a bunch of places, but kind of put all that on hold for now until things kind of settle down.
Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, that's but that's my wife's gaming setup and work setup. Yeah.
The camera, do you have a like, because I see like you're in focus and that thing is like focus back there, but there's like I guess like the blur around the outside. I guess that looks kind of like the pictures on the wall and stuff are kind of like out of focus though, even though they're like the same depth back there. It's kind of interesting. What kind of lens is that?
This is just a Logitech camera. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm using the Brio is the one I use, Logitech Brio for stream, and then the one I'm talking to you on and you can see me on is the C920. Like, okay. I've had that for like fucking ever. Yeah.
Yeah, I tried, man, the was it the Brio? That was the 4K one? Or whatever. Yeah. Man, I never had any good luck with those. Or I used the C920 for the longest time, but I think when you start using multiple ones, they start kind of having a hiccup for sure. Actually, you're using only one for each computer, right?
Right.
Did you ever try using them both on the same computer?
Yeah.
Did you have a lot of problems with them?
Yeah. It's really fucking terrible.
It trashes up your USB like bandwidth. It's crazy. Yeah.
The way I circumvented it, it's gotten a lot where it is better now. I'm still I switched it over to a single PC, but I had to use a powered USB external, and then even then, like, I still have to fucking use one on the external USB hub and then one on the PC like direct, like USB 3.0 slot. It's fucking weird. But I agree. Yeah, it's super weird.
If you ever or anyone wants to ever get into having like multiple like DSLR cameras hooked up, I would really recommend this Blackmagic Quad HDMI card. It's a PCI Express card, and that's what I use. It's got 4 inputs for cameras and shit. Because if I were to use cam links, the Elgato cam links, they're cool. That's actually what I'm using right now for this right now, because you know, that's an easy plug-in thing if I'm only using one camera on that. But my streaming computer, I use the Quad HDMI, and it gets all of them. They don't hang at all. They don't freeze up. You know, I don't know. It's just a much better solution for anyone moving forward. If you want to use more than one camera, if you use 2 cam links, you're gonna be having a bad time, because your USB bandwidth there's just not enough there. I don't know what it is. It's something to do with just the limitations of USB, like 3.0 or 3. Whatever they're at now. Yeah. That there's just not enough space on the highway there for all this like really high FPS camera data. Yeah. But yeah, it's
super weird. You think that would be like going along with the technology, but growing pains, you know. Awesome. All right. Well, if anybody else doesn't have any questions, I think it's good. We're good to wrap up. Sequisha, thanks again for sharing your experience, personal and streaming, and thanks for chatting with us, man.
Yeah, it was good being here, man.
Yeah. For everybody else, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, have a good night, man.
Will do. For everybody else, like if y'all getting in late and weren't able to ask a question, sorry, but hey, you know, you'll be able to catch this. This will be highlighted on my Twitch channel. I'll be posting it on YouTube for people to watch as well. And then, Sec, I'll send you a link, so if people want to catch it, like in the Discord, if they missed it or whatever, they can do it as well. Okay.
Sounds good, dude.
All right, everybody, y'all have a great night, great start to your weekend, and we'll catch you later. Okay. See ya. Bye.
Bye.